Hey, I got a quick question for you. Are you showing up as the expert authority in your business, making sure that your message is on point and your branding is reflective of your go-to authorityness? Hi, I'm Christine Blosdale, your expert authority business coach, and I have a way for you to rate your expert authority prowess. And you can check it out at expertauthorityquiz.com. It's fun, it's easy, and it's something that you really should be doing to see where you level up. If you want to establish trust with your audience and potential customers and clients, you might want to take this quiz. Once again, head on over to expertauthorityquiz.com. That's expertauthorityquiz.com.
But this is an example of somebody who I never suspected experienced imposter syndrome. And for me, it meant, okay, I'm not terribly broken. So here it says, when I won the Oscar, I thought it was a fluke. I thought everybody would find out and they would take it back. They'd come to my house in the middle of the night, knock on the door, and say, "Excuse me, we meant to give that to someone else." Now, that is 100% imposter syndrome. Do you know who said that?
No.
Jodie Foster.
Wow.
Right?
Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. Are you willing to step into your greatness? Are you ready to shine? Well, get ready, Truth Seeker. You're in for an amazing ride. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blosdale.
Welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I'm your host, Christine Blosdale, and I am your expert authority coach who helps you get the word out on your business. If you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and you want to get the word out about what you do, tell the world what you do, I help you through podcasting, through videos, through TikToks, through best-selling books, you name it, anything to do with multimedia. I'm your human. And today I feel like we are kindred spirits from across the pond. I have my guest here today, Candy Motzek, who's just an incredible coach. And there's so many similarities. There's so many things that we have in common, Candy. And I really wanted to have you on the show today to encourage our entrepreneurs and our solopreneurs not to give up. That there is their audience, there are their humans, their tribe out there. And so I just wanted to have you on the show. Candy Motzek, welcome to Out of the Box.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited for the conversation.
Yeah, and you are also a fellow podcaster. And how do I know this? Because
you've been on my show.
Exactly. Tell the folks about your show. Tell the folks about your podcast.
Yeah, my show's called She Coaches Coaches, and it's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially I help people, successful people who want to quit their job. So it's interviews and teaching and coaching, all for people who want to make that transition. So that's what it's about.
And that can be a scary time. I remember when I went from being an employee to being a soloee and it can be a bit nerve-wracking because you're used to that paycheck. You're like, well, that's something I can rely on. I don't know if I can make it out there in the world. So do you help people with those initial fears and issues that they may have about going off on their own?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And it's a bit of a leap, right? People get that, they've got this dream and they sort of get inspired by it. And then they kind of pull themselves back from the edge because they're so worried that it's dangerous. And I remind them that your 9 to 5 job, even though it might be amazing, even though you love it, even though you might have all the benefits and bonuses and all of that, it could be gone in an
Yes.
instant,
Right.
right? And so, how better to have both? How much better to have a side business as well as a job if that is the way you want to live your life? It is the ultimate in safety and security. And then there's people who are like, I want to be done with that job. And you can make that transition too. But really, it just makes you more solid. And when you feel solid and safe, your blood pressure drops, you can sleep at night, and you can do something that you love to do as well.
Yeah, and I've myself included, but also I have worked with clients who have that Monday morning dread. And if you have Monday morning dread, meaning when that alarm clock goes off on Monday or on Sunday night, you're you're stressing out, you're sitting there, you can't sleep, you're going, I've got to go back into that place, then that's your sign that maybe you should be starting to think. And I as well, when I went from employee to starting my own business, I did not just leap from the frying pan into the fire. I made sure that I still had that job, and I started to develop. And so at night, I'd come home from work and I would work a little bit on my, creating my website and my messaging of what I wanted to do. And I would start with getting, a few clients here and there, and slowly build the business so that it was successful enough that I could actually depart my job that I had, because also I did not like the fact that someone had that power over me, where they could say, we're cutting your hours, we're slicing, our staff. And COVID was a perfect example of that, was it not?
Yeah, oh, totally. And, as much as your team might love you and, all of the senior leaders might think that you do great work, when the company decides to get rid of your department, for example,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Right? Or you're just a number on a spreadsheet, your employee number XYZ, and it's truly nothing personal, but it feels so
Yeah.
personal, right?
Yeah.
That's the hard thing. And I've been in that position where I had to choose, which of my team members were going to be let go. And that for me was one of the biggest drivers for wanting to leave corporate. It
Mm.
was gut wrenching. And so, if there are people out there and you're irritated or resentful, if you've been laid off, or if you think your job might be at risk, know that it's not done in a heartless way 99% of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Those people appreciate you. And so keep that relationship going, right? Like that's your professional network. Keep that moving.
Yeah, and it does, it says something about you when, years down the road, the people that you had worked. I worked at a radio station for a network in America. The station that I worked for was in Los Angeles, and those friendships, those relationships that I developed are lifetime relationships, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
even though I'm not there on the day to day by the water cooler, talking to them, we still have a very strong bond. And I think it's because also you go through so much shit together. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're cutting jobs today. Whew, were you okay? Yeah, I got saved. Okay, whew. All right. There's that bonding. It's like in the military. It's like when you're in war, you know,
Right.
troops, you start to bond with each other in some way. So for those, take us through a bit of the process when you're working with people. So maybe they're unhappy where they're at, they have a passion of some sort, or they're concerned about seeing the writing, on the wall, that it looks like they won't have that job security for very much longer. How do you take what do you do when you have a client that comes to you and is facing these things?
So so much of what I do, we've got the strategy. You build the business in a really basic way. You find your dream client, you create a niche, you develop a program, you start to do your market research, and you coach people and work your way into building a business. But the other part is that the mindset part. It's that worry. Can I do this? Can I be successful at this kind of thing? And that's where, sort of the fun of it is that yes, we always do the strategy, but we also have to do the mindset.
Mm,
Because when you're filled with self-doubt, you have self-doubt coupled with excitement, it just turns into this like a boiling pot of who knows what, and not a lot happens. And so, how do we deal with making sure that you feel centered, that you feel aligned, that you feel confident in the choices, really clear? And that's a big part of the work that I do. Just yesterday, I had a chat with a lady who has been going around and around and around trying to decide on her niche. And she said, I've got these three different options and I don't know what to do. Well, it turned out she'd been having this conundrum for months. And we talked about it, and I said, a niche is one thing. You just need to make a decision, and then you can always change your mind. Like, it's not the end of the world if you change your mind. But
Exactly.
what she had done unknowingly, and this is where the coaching I think is so important, is that she hadn't done anything for 3 months. And once she realized, oh my gosh, I've been sitting in this place of indecision, not doing anything, no amount of strategy is going to help you with that, right? She
Yeah.
knew the next step to do and she got stuck. And so I think that's the thing that's the most important when you're working with people who are on that, I want to be a solopreneur. Is that what you find too, Christine?
Yes. And I find that you know, even myself, I change, I grow, I learn. So I'm constantly tweaking my website, my branding, looking at it from a real critical standpoint. But when I first started, because remember, I was in radio for 20 years. And so my first step into solopreneurship really was helping small business owners or entrepreneurs create a podcast, right? Because I knew audio. I know the art of the interview. I know the power of the voice. And so the natural progression for that was to be a podcast coach. That's how I started. But I'm way more than about podcasting. Yes, I love to be a guest on podcasts like your wonderful show. I love hosting. I love showing people how to create their own branded business podcast, but I'm way more than that. I'm about creating TikToks and best-selling books and website. I love looking at people's website and their branding, really about their personal brand. And so I've slowly developed the niche of being an expert authority coach based on all those years of being, an interviewer and a producer and all that stuff and working for America Online and all that. So I just slowly developed that. But did I start off that way? No. And I think that's important is to let people know that it's okay to change. It's okay to morph. Maybe you start off with this one thing, but then you go, you know what? I don't enjoy so much that kind of work. I really get passionate about this. And I've got some clients that they're passionate about helping people get over their phobias and fears. Others are very systematic and they have a system where they take people through a progressive system, right? So just to know that it's not set in stone. That's really important. Another
Yeah.
important thing I believe is the ability to work alone. See, I've when I did work when I was an employee, because I live so far away from the station, I said I have to be remote. I have to be able to work from home because 3 hours in a commute, round trip. I said I will come into the office. I will come obviously into the studio, but I need to be able to produce and work at home so I get more done. And I was that kind of a person that you could trust that would get the work done because I produced it. Like I did the stuff. There are others that would, if they got to, not go to the office, they're going to go to the beach, they're going to go to the bar, they're going to, they're not going to do the work that needs to be done. So it was a natural progression to be working at home on my business because I could do that. Right. So I think that
Mm.
that's also a characteristic that is important because if you're at home
Yeah.
and you're finding yourself just watching Netflix all day, as your business isn't going to go
It's
anywhere.
not going to work.
No.
Maybe you want to have a business as a reviewer, like a
Yeah,
show,
maybe.
right?
Yeah.
But when I was thinking about you were describing sort of the evolution of how your business has grown and how you help people, I think about how inspiring that is. Like you are in a position where you identify a need and you say, "Hey, that's kind of cool. I like that." And then you can do it. So that's one of the great things about being a solopreneur is you get to be fluid like that. When you want
Yes.
to develop in that direction, you get to develop in that direction. And how many people worry about their 9 to 5 and say, I got my job description, including other duties as assigned, and then I end up doing a whole bunch of stuff I don't like to do,
Yeah.
right? But when you're self-employed, you get to find that place of profit and purpose and passion, right? Like it's kind of it's not always available to us in the workforce. And then to be able to be independent and work on your own, I found for me, like I was a work from home, I managed a remote team for years before I became self-employed. What I found is that if it mattered to me, then I'm really motivated to work. And so maybe some of the people that are listening going, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm a good independent worker," if they're questioning that, as soon as it's something that you love to do, it's not
It's not work.
that kind of work. It's work, but it's meaningful work, right? And so there's that part of it too.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now, and as a coach who coaches coaches, ah, I,
Talking to another coach who coaches coaches.
yes. You got to do a podcast called They Coach Coaches. This is
Yeah.
supposed to She Coaches Coaches. But one of the things that there's tools and techniques and strategies that I can give my clients, but I find, and I already know the answer to this, but I find that some of the biggest thing, it's a bit of a therapist role in some respect, but it's helping people overcome those obstacles that are not physical obstacles, but the imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
Com- the comparison model, the scarcity model. Can you talk about imposter syndrome, that comparison, that dreaded comparison thing, and also the scarcity mindset?
Yeah, totally. And so first off, I am like the president of the Imposter Syndrome Club, just so you know. And it's because we often, like, overachievers often experience imposter syndrome. I've got this really great quote here. Let me just read this to you. You
Sure.
probably know who this is, but this is an example of somebody who I never suspected experienced imposter syndrome. And for me, it meant, okay, I'm not terribly broken. So here it says, when I won the Oscar, I thought it was a fluke. I thought everybody would find out and they would take it back. They'd come to my house in the middle of the night, knock on the door, and say, "Excuse me, we meant to give that to someone else." Now, that is 100% imposter syndrome. Do you know who said that?
No.
Jodie Foster.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, right?
She's
Like,
she's so honest.
I know. And when I think of her
And she's
career,
smart. This one's smart.
oh,
She
right?
speaks fluent French.
She does all kinds of stuff, right?
She
So
directs.
you say about imposter syndrome, and I go, yeah, me too. What I know is that the vast majority of people who want to achieve something great with their life experience imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's a matter of timing. If you're new to it, then of course you're going to feel like a little bit of a fraud because you haven't got that experience under your belt yet. So
Right. Right.
it's really common. And what I love to help people do is create a little success file. Go back into your old emails and go and print off all those times that somebody said, "Wow, that was amazing. I can't believe you helped me in that way." And then when you're feeling kind of like, like Jodie Foster said, somebody's going to come and take your award in the middle of the night, you can go through that file and you can be reminded that just because your brain thinks it doesn't make it true, right?
You know what I do?
So,
I have it sitting in front of me, so I see it every single day. Is my own little award.
I love it.
It's my
It's
own little
great.
Academy Award that no one can take
Yeah.
away, right?
Yeah.
I find that when I have a client who's really deep in the imposter syndrome and scared to death to move on their business, I I take them just through a little journey, and I, instead of saying, basically I say it's not about you. And they go, "What? It is about me. I have to market myself. I have to put myself out there." And I said, "Listen, why are you doing this? Well, I want to help people do blah, 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 blah. I want to help children feel creative and express their creativity. I want to inspire people to know that if you have breast cancer, it's not the end of the world, and there's hope. Okay, okay, okay. So I say, okay, so that's who you want to serve. The audience who you want to serve are these people, right? Or the environment, whatever the passion is. And I said, focus on that as opposed to you and how you look, how you're going to be perceived, all of those things. I said, if you don't start speaking up, if you don't start writing those books, if you don't start doing those videos, if you don't start doing those podcast shows, you are letting that audience down, but also they won't know. So they won't know to be inspired by your overcoming breast cancer. They won't know that there is hope for them in some respect. They won't get that gift that you have, but you're too scared to let it go. And for some of my clients, that's like the light bulb that they'll go, "You're right. I needed to shush and really focus on who I want to serve." So sometimes that helps them. Other times, then we have to go in with the paddles. We just
Just do one tiny thing, you'll be fine, and then you can do the next tiny thing,
yes,
right?
exactly,
I was
exactly.
listening to a podcast by David Baer this morning. I think it's one of his most recent episodes on A Changed Mind. And he said that a lot of the people that he works with, one of their biggest fears, as they come to the end of their life, is that they didn't make the difference that they thought that they should. Like they knew they were on this earth in this life to make a difference, and they had a purpose, a reason for being here. And that fear of, and I didn't fulfill it, is really, really motivating. So
Regret.
kind of, yeah,
It's
right?
that end of your time regret. I should have, would have, could have. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
huge. I think that, wow, that's
Mhm.
inspiring. Well, that's a great way to end the show. Now, no, you were talking about, earlier you were talking about helping your clients nail down that niche because that's the other thing, the other gripe that I have with some coaches that are starting off. I say, who do you serve? What do you do? And they'll go, I help everybody. They throw pasta on the wall. I help everybody do everything. Or I'll say, what is it that you do? And they go, what is it that I don't do? I do everything, right? So nailing down your niche or niche, whatever you want to say, is really important. And you have something really special to help people get there, right?
Yeah, I've got a coach niche quiz, and it's a new Chat GPT that I programmed myself. I had so much fun creating it. And what I love about it is it doesn't try to take the person who takes the quiz and put them in a pigeonhole. It takes, what do you love? What are your passions? What are your skills? What's your expertise? And what do you hate? And then the GPT goes in and it comes back and gives you three personalized options for niches. And I think it's brand new. I just ran a beta test and I've had about 50 people go through it, and people are just loving it. It is so much fun.
I'm doing it myself. I'm in the middle. I was telling Candy I was in the middle of doing the quiz. I love it because it's asking you the questions that you should be asking yourself if you want to be a coach, or if you are a coach and you're just trying to really nail down what it is that you do and not throw pasta on the wall. And so I was just in the middle of it when I started the recording for this episode. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish it because I love it. But it's very
Cool.
cool. So this is a custom Chat GPT that my wonderful guest Candy has built. It helps coaches discover their customized niche, and it's based on your skills, your passions, and your successes. And what is it called? It's called Discover Your Aligned Coaching Niche, and we'll have a
Exactly.
link to that for people.
Yes.
It's absolutely free. You can just go and just check it out. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. All right, Candy?
Awesome. Yes,
Yeah.
that's just
Thank you
great. I'll
so much for
definitely
being
give you
on
the
the
link.
show. I really appreciate it. And we'll also include a link to your main website if that's all right.
Sure thing. Yeah. Or
Okay.
actually, my podcast. Podcast is a great place.
We'll do the podcast because then they can listen to the episode where I'm a guest on. You see? You see how reciprocal
Yes.
we are? Thank you again so much. My guest today has been Candy Motzek. Thank you again, love. And I want to thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers, those that are watching on YouTube. Hello, we're waving at you. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you want more information about the work that I do, you can go to expertauthoritycoach.com. If you want to take my quiz, you can actually find out what your expert authority-ness is in your particular niche. You can do that by going to expertauthorityquiz.com. All of that is going to be in the show notes, so you can check it out. And until next time, as I always say, remember to think outside that damn box. Bye for now.